As I walked down the apartment hallway, tired from work, suddenly someone from the neighboring apartment grabbed my arm. Confused and scared, I screamed as I was dragged inside. It was my neighbor, Mr. Johnson, who apologized, claiming he had no choice. Suspicious, I pulled away, demanding an explanation. He nervously said, "Actually, my name is Luna. Now, let me tell you about my life. I'm 24, working in a well-known trading company. I enjoy the freedom of living alone in a city apartment, earning my own money. I grew up with a single mom who struggled to provide, but she never gave me an allowance. Despite her reasonable income, she was labeled a toxic parent. I moved out to escape her control, and I'll share our story. I was born and raised in a town near New York City. My childhood home was remote, making life difficult without a car or bus. Raised by my single mom, I should be grateful, but her restrictions created resentment. In elementary school, I asked for an allowance, but she refused, claiming money could lead to trouble. Despite promises, she never bought what I wanted. Birthdays were filled with disappointing educational books, and I realized my mom was different from my friends' parents. Every day, I desperately tried to find a way to escape my parents' control. Through middle and high school, it only intensified. Not only did I not get an allowance, but I also had to report and get permission for everything, whether it was hanging out with friends or going on dates. Once, after sneaking out to meet my boyfriend, I faced my mother's furious reaction the next morning. She declared that I would go without meals for the next 3 days. Without an allowance, I couldn't even buy food outside. Too embarrassed to let my friends or boyfriend know about my toxic mom, I couldn't ask them for something as simple as a snack. After 3 days of hunger, my concerned boyfriend approached me, asking if I was okay. Unable to hold back my tears, I'd opened up about my mother. I still remember the shock on his face. Although he sympathized at first, he began avoiding me afterward. 2 weeks later, I overheard him telling his friends that my mom seemed like a real problem, and he didn't want to deal with it. He thought I was desperate and kind of scary. Hearing him talk like that made me realize he felt bothered by my toxic mom, not wanting to protect me but feeling alienated. Overwhelmed with frustration and tears, I quietly slipped away to a corner of the hallway, realizing it was over with him still having feelings for him. I had to abruptly end my love for him, filled with anger towards my mom. When I got home, I lashed out at her, questioning why she had to control me. I blamed her for my boyfriend leaving, and my friends distancing themselves because of her abnormal behavior. Frustrated, I vented at her, only to find her pleased that my relationship had ended. Her self-indulgent response deepened my despair. My mother couldn't understand my feelings, and her sense of righteousness ignored common sense. Controlling my life was her reason for living. Feeling dizzy and unable to contain myself, I rushed to my room. Closing the door, I cried, wishing for a lock that my mother, who enjoyed controlling me, would never allow. My mother's concerned voice interrupted, asking if I was eating dinner. Her words weighed heavy on my chest. After high school, determined to live alone, I vowed to become a college student. I channeled my frustration into studying for exams as revenge. I secretly started a part-time job, faking my mother's signature. Gradually, I earned scholarships and slipped into the acceptance range of a New York public university. When I finally told my mother about my achievements, she smiled sweetly, praising my hard work. However, her reference to M University, a nearby public university, signaled that I wouldn't be allowed to live on my own. It was just a 20-minute commute from home. Despite choosing a university within New York, my mother insisted on a different one in a neighboring town. This left me feeling uneasy, as she continued trying to control me even as I was about to become a college student. Rejecting the idea of M University, I expressed my desire for our chosen university. In response, my mother sternly dismissed it, insisting on N University and questioning my chances of getting in. Frustrated and unable to hold back tears, I turned away from my mother and rushed to my room. Even as a college student, I couldn't escape her control. Balancing exams and part-time work was tough, and despite my efforts, it all seemed unnecessary. The frustration affected my sleep, leading me to take the entrance exam for M University, getting in as expected. Before I knew it, I was a college student, and my mother surprised me with a smartphone as a celebration gift. It was a remarkable shift from her previous controlling behavior. With the smartphone, I felt liberated, like a fish in water, thoroughly enjoying college life. Making new friends and engaging in normal communication, I also focused on my future, participating in student organizations and volunteer activities. Rather than joining clubs or sports teams, I applied what I learned to secure a position at the most famous trading company in the States, located in New York. Finally, as a working adult, I got to live on my own. My mother congratulated me on my job, presenting me with a $2,000 wallet as a gift. Over the past few years, her control over me had considerably loosened. Despite past resentment, I genuinely thanked her for everything as I began living apart from her. In the end, I decided to express my gratitude, and my mother's response was, "It's nothing. Just take care and do your best." Despite her recent change in attitude, I didn't question why she was so willing to let me go. Looking back, I should have been more suspicious, understanding that my mother wouldn't easily let me go. Nevertheless, I ended up living alone in a town near the center of New York City. The rent was high, but my company's housing allowance made my personal expenses around $600 a month. The apartment building wasn't large, and I would recognize the faces of fellow residents. I lived in a corner room on the third floor, and next door lived a man named Johnson. While we exchanged greetings, our interactions were limited. Johnson seemed about 5 years older, with a slender build and a kind appearance. In New York, neighborly interactions are usually indifferent, so beyond a simple hello, I rarely spoke with Johnson. Fortunately, he didn't seem like a strange person. I kept my apartment secret from my mother, as I didn't want her showing up unannounced. When she asked about my address, I simply said, "I'll be back soon," and left it at that. She seemed a bit down but accepted it, saying, "Well, that's fine." Despite being focused on my work computer, my mother frequently called or texted me. During work, I received calls that interrupted my concentration, leading to irritation. The demanding job at the trading company, coupled with my mother's constant calls, made the situation challenging. Not just calls, but she kept sending messages, resulting in a flood of unread notifications. A chill ran down my spine, and a concerned colleague noticed my strained expression. I reassured them, "It's nothing," and managed to maintain composure, continuing my work. 2 years passed in this manner, and at the age of 24, my second-year salary was remarkably high. Earning money independently brought me deep joy. Gradually, I became more engrossed in work, increasingly ignoring calls from my mother. Since she didn't know where I lived, there was no chance of running into her unless I went home. The image of my mother slowly faded from my life, and I finally felt like I was living my own life. One day, after drinks with colleagues, I was tipsier than usual on my way home. Around 10 p.m., as I reached the third floor of my apartment building, I staggered towards my corner room, mumbling about another long day at work. Suddenly, a man's voice called out, "Luna, over here for a sec." I felt someone grab my arm from the next-door apartment entrance. In a moment of confusion, I screamed and was dragged inside. Furious, I shouted, "What on earth are you doing? I'm going to call the cops." My neighbor, Mr. Johnson, apologized, claiming he had no other choice. Suspicious, I shook off his grip and accused him of planning something. In the midst of my panic, Mr. Johnson urged me to calm down. However, his next words made me shudder. "I saw someone break into your apartment." Although I immediately thought it might be a trap, Johnson looked serious. Unfamiliar with such situations, I was more afraid of him than anything and tried to escape. Startled by his intense tone, I hesitated, and he urgently pleaded for me to wait, emphasizing the danger outside. At a crossroads and unsure whether to believe him, I saw desperation in Johnson's eyes. Though we had barely spoken, his eyes seemed direct and sincere. It was just a hunch, but I felt inclined to listen to him. Trembling, I asked about the break-in details, and Johnson began to explain. I couldn't see clearly, but the person wore all black, with long sleeves and pants, looking suspicious. I'd seen someone similar around the apartment complex before, thinking they were just another resident. About 3 hours ago, when I came home, I saw that person entering your apartment, and that's when I thought something was off. It's 10 p.m. now, so around 7 o'clock p.m. Wearing all black clothes in July isn't comfortable. However, the key issue is how someone could enter my house without having a key. Initially, I thought it might be a friend or your boyfriend, Luna, so I didn't pay much attention. However, when I heard you coming home just a while ago, I got shocked. Even if they were a friend or boyfriend, staying alone in someone else's home for 3 hours seems strange. It hit me that this person could be dangerous, so I decided to stop you. Mr. Johnson's words made me tremble violently. If what he was saying was true, the intruder might still be hiding in my apartment. I haven't given my keys to anyone, don't have a boyfriend, and haven't made plans with any friends, ever since a harsh experience with a boyfriend in high school. I've avoided dating men, so I currently don't have a romantic partner or close friends nearby. Who could be breaking into my home? Luna, please calm down and listen. Have you been stalked by anyone recently? Johnson asked, trying to soothe my agitation. Stalked? No, nothing like that. I had no recollection of such a thing, but it was possible someone was stalking me without my knowledge. Maybe you just haven't noticed, but the perpetrator could have been acting this way for a while. Is there anyone, perhaps a romantic partner, with whom you had a falling out or argument? When Mr. Johnson asked me that, I thought about the men around me. Since a high school incident, I've been afraid to get involved with men, and I hadn't had any such relationships with my work colleagues. No, there's no one. I've been avoiding such things all this time. I couldn't think of anyone who might be the intruder. It seemed the only option left was to contact the police, but having never called 911 in my life, I hesitated to make the report. After all, the claim of an intruder in my house was solely based on Johnson's word. Should I really trust what this man is saying? I stared at my phone's call button, unable to press it, and impatiently, Johnson said he'd call the police. Just then, the doorbell rang, startling me, and I accidentally dropped my phone. Wondering who it could be at this time, I peeked through the peephole of Johnson's apartment door. Seeing the person in black clothes outside left me speechless. Mr. Johnson's voice was trembling too. He must be scared as well. Trying to steady my shaking body, I answered, "It's my mother." To Mr. Johnson, my response might have seemed anticlimactic. However, the fact that my mother was standing in front of Johnson's door next to my apartment brought an unbelievable amount of fear. What's going on? Mr. Johnson's voice trembled as well. Could it be that the person I mistook for a stalker was your mother? If so, I'm really sorry. That's a huge misunderstanding. I apologize. Mr. Johnson apologized to me, but I shook my head. No, it's not that. It's just that. I hesitated to tell Johnson that my mother was toxic and that I hadn't even given her the address of this apartment. Before I could, my mother banged on the door, saying, "Hello, excuse me. I think my daughter is in there. Could she come out, please?" My mother's loud voice echoed in the hallway, making me jump. How did she know where I live? And how did she know I was here? I flung open the door, and my mother said, "Oh, Luna, finally found you. I've been trying to contact you, but you've been ignoring me. I just wanted to see you so badly. I came here. Aren't you coming home yet?" Seeing my mother standing there as if it were the most natural thing made me feel nauseous. "Mom, how did you know where I live? And how did you know I was here?" I had so many questions, dressed all in black, just like Johnson described, like a stalker. And how did she know where my house and whereabouts were? Why was she sneaking around behind my back? Well, that's easy. I put GPS trackers in that smartphone and wallet. I was shocked by my mother's revelation. The smartphone and wallet were gifts for my mother for special occasions. I had been using the same smartphone for about 6 years, which means I've been monitored by my mother all this time. A chill ran down my spine, and I swallowed hard. At first, it was just a smartphone, but you sometimes leave it at home, right? So I thought if I put GPS trackers in both the phone and the wallet, you'd always have one with you. You're my precious daughter, Luna. I've always been worried about you, thinking what if something dangerous happened? Watching my mother speak so nonchalantly, I completely lost my composure. I thought that becoming a working adult meant I have finally gained true freedom, earning my own money, doing what I wanted when I wanted. I thought I could enjoy such basic freedoms that everyone else takes for granted. But it turned out I was just dancing in the palm of my mother's hand all along. If this continues, my life will forever be controlled by my mother. I can't stand that. I was done having my life thrown into disarray by my mother. Mom. I called out to her in a very calm voice. My mother responded in her usual clueless tone. Yes, what is it? I'm never going back home again, Mom. Whenever I'm with you, I feel like I'm always being restrained. It's always been like that, hasn't it? You call me your precious daughter, your beloved daughter, but you've stifled everything I wanted to do. You neatly clipped my wings every time I tried to spread them, using worry as a plausible excuse. Each time, it hurt me deeply and caused me great pain. I am not your possession, Mom. I have my own will as a person, and I don't want it to be tainted by anyone else. So, Mom, let's cut ties. Please don't ever contact me again or come to see me. In a final outburst, I shouted all my feelings at her. My mother, hearing my declaration of cutting ties for the first time, visibly paled. She must have been shocked to be defied like this, always assuming I would comply with her cutting ties. What? Why, I'm your mother, Luna. Look, I didn't come today to restrain you. That's right. I just thought of borrowing some money from you. That's all I came for. My mother, now in disarray, suddenly claimed she wanted to borrow money, which made no sense. Money? What are you talking about, Mom? Are you in debt? Were you planning to steal money from your daughter, who earns a lot? You never intended to borrow, did you? You sneaked into my apartment to steal money, right? Everything clicked about why she had been in my apartment for 3 hours. If she really wanted to see me, she would have called or texted. But there was no contact from her today. She must have planned to steal from me and then see me afterward. But I don't keep cash at home. My bank books are hidden where they can't be easily found. Frustrated that she couldn't fulfill her intention to steal, she just wanted to satisfy her desire to see me and came next door. Thinking this, I felt disgusted, even considering her as my mother. No, I just wanted to borrow a little. My mother, used to such confrontations, began to panic. I couldn't trust a single word she said anymore. Gathering all my strength, I yelled at her again, enough. A person who tries to steal from her own daughter is not a mother. Never show your face to me again. I'm canceling my phone. Goodbye. Ignoring my mother's wide-eyed expression, I forcefully shut Johnson's door. For a while, she kept shouting, Luna, I'm sorry. Please open the door. It seemed the neighbors found the commotion suspicious and called the police. I heard the sirens of a patrol car and my mother arguing with the police in the hallway. The police managed to take her out of the building. Exhausted, I slumped to the ground. Are you okay? Mr. Johnson asked, looking at me with concern. I'm sorry for involving you in a family fight because of my mother. No, it's okay. Just rest for today. Thankful for Mr. Johnson's kindness, I returned to my room and crawled into bed. I decided to sleep without thinking about anything. My consciousness slowly faded into darkness. As for what happened afterward, I separated my family register from my mother's to create some distance. Though legally I couldn't cut ties completely with my biological parent, having my name removed from her family register made me feel like I had escaped her control, and I felt a sense of relief. Furthermore, I threw away the smartphone and wallet my mother gave me, replaced them with new ones, and moved to a different apartment. Of course, I haven't shared my new phone number with my mother. Now she won't be able to pinpoint my whereabouts. After that incident at my apartment, my mother, who had received a stern warning from the police for causing a disturbance, apparently became reclusive. As she confessed, after I left home and started working, She indulged in high-end brands of clothes and bags to distract herself from loneliness, accumulating considerable debt. Eventually, she ran out of living expenses and resorted to borrowing from high-end lenders. She is now troubled daily by debt collectors. However, I couldn't bring myself to help her. The fact that she had controlled and monitored me, even using GPS, is a shocking event that I can never forgive and is etched in my heart. If cutting ties with her serves as a punishment for her, so be it. I plan to live in a world without my mother. Even after moving to my new apartment, I kept in touch with Johnson, my former neighbor. Initially, I reached out to thank him, but he continued to stay in contact, and now we even go out for meals together. Having refused romantic relationships with men for a long time, escaping from my mother's control has made me more open to love. If things go well with Johnson, it would ironically be thanks to my mother. But I want to build a bright future with Mr. Johnson away from